had a live going on this morning, and then I was at a gym, and the filming cut out, and I just at that very moment someone was like, oh man, that brother sound wise. One wise thing is to take a hint, because a lot of times, like by the time something would be blatant to you, even like something that don't work, it's a lot of times like I think I prospered from, and I stand by being spontaneous, not only in front of other people but in front of yourself. So like one of the best, like a lot of people, I was listening to some people might know there's something called self plagiarizing. So like if you're in a class and you do something in one paper over here, and then you make your same statement over here based on something you already said, but like you said for the first time, that's technically self plagiarism. So just to self plagiarize myself, I was commenting on a video, and what the hell was I thinking about? The um, Damn, my bad, I lost that train of thought. Um, oh, they were talking about there's something called Victor Whiskey. That means voluntary withdrawal. So that's like if you can imagine like a famous example that would be like if you can imagine like Navy SEAL training. If you've ever seen like replicas of that, or like that type of scenario of like a whole bunch of like guys like what are we gonna do with the boats? Carry the boats. And then like they might have a bell like that, and then when you sign that bell, you're tapping out in front of everybody, in front of your comrades, your would-be comrades, your would-be commanders, your would-be cadre, your would-be self, your future self, your dreams of yourself. You're tapping out in front of all that. The military, I think the designation, but also the joke, not the slang for that in military, the shorthand for that is Victor Whiskey voluntary withdrawal. But then this guy was on there and he was saying like, man, if you want to go around here, I think he was referring to Delta Force. So there's the Navy SEALs that people would know about, and then you have other stuff that people would not get to know about, and now you may know about Delta. I knew about that at least 10, 12 years ago because I had friends in college who were military people, and they were some really cool people. They weren't encouraging me to do nothing the hell do about military. They didn't think that military was cool. That's who they were. But they would tell me about like that shit that you don't know about unless you actually talk among the ranks. But even that's what they know about as regular people. But whatever the hell, they always got something. There's always something up. So who do you know got better tricks than Uncle Sam? Uncle Sam got something up his sleeve for everybody else. Even people that work for the IRS, even people in the military. There's something up his sleeve for everybody. But at least now, what you may or may not know about is that you have like the SEALs, and then you have Delta Force, and you may like my friend works at a military surplus, and they have all these badges and insignia, and you don't know what the hell that corresponds to you, but you know that's some wicked ass, well organized stuff. Like just to give you an example of how serious like stuff like that is. I was taking a trip across the country this year on a motorcycle, and as you come north of Phoenix, there's a long stretch of highway there where it's unforgiving. You can't actually pull off to the side because it's like a lot of hills. And when you drive a motorcycle, you get more fatigued than you do driving anything else because it takes more of your energy. Like you don't appreciate how well fine-tuned this life is, because when you're on a motorcycle and you actually get some momentum, if you just barely move if you can't actually teach someone how to ride a bike or a motorcycle, but that if you want to sit like this, or you want to sit like this, or any way you would sit that vehicle, especially if it's well made. That I was on a recent year model Harley Davidson, and it had a little bit higher center of gravity. So when you're new to it, you actually feel like more of a maestro getting on the thing because it's so well built that it's gonna exactly tap into whatever kind of hack or whatever kind of hack you were or weren't, whatever kind of experience you had or hadn't or had by nature. That motorcycle is going to bring out your actual talent, how well designed it is, just in terms of like ergonomics and gravity. But it has a higher center of gravity compared to other motorcycles, so it can tip over very easy. And that's one of the dangerous things about that bike. I'm not going to blast that bike or the make, but it's very well made. You can handle. It's very as sturdy, as safe as a motorcycle can be at breakneck speeds where you're not speeding. You can break your neck on a bicycle, so you can sure enough break it on a motorcycle, but it's so well made that it's going to handle those curves, and it's going to eat those curves. Like that motorcycle, I was coming up and down around Phoenix, upgrades, downgrades, and that motorcycle was good to go like that. There was no actual imminent danger from the motorcycle, like for me not being sturdy as a newbie. But if you're going slow, it can tip over very easy. And a motorcycle tipping over is as dangerous as wrecking the thing because it's that heavy. But the thing about this model I'm at is that it's built in such a way that if you tip over on yourself, it's not going to completely crush you as it otherwise would, because something about it has like a bracing on it, so it won't. They know it's going to be sold to newbies. It's going to make newbies feel like rock and roll, and every once in a while, newbies are going to forget that a motorcycle is not a bike. They're going to take a turn too short and they're going to tip over. But I was coming from Arizona. I've been driving for a long time in the night, and I got fatigued, and I pulled over and I tipped it over on myself. So as I'm sitting there on the highway, a car pulls up. Hey man, what the hell's going on here? They get out the car and they see man down, motorcycle man down. And it's just like, what's up with this? He's like, are you okay? Are you okay? I was like, oh no, man, it's not that bad. I tipped over, but I'm all right. He's like, can I help you with anything? Can I help you? I was like, if you can lift it up. He's like, oh, this damn thing? This dude was so big and formidable. He wasn't that tall, but he was about as stocky as Paul Bunyan. And he picked up that motorcycle like nothing, like nobody's business, just like nothing. And then he's like, you good? You good okay? Okay, I gotta get back to my girlfriend. Oh yeah, and then they come out that he had been like an EMT. So if you can appreciate what that mercy, that was a traveling mercy. That wasn't just a traveling mercy, that was a life mercy, a lifeline, a life extension, one of my 9 lives as a cat. I gotta be damn near about the last one by now, and I haven't even got onto the cool stuff yet. But if you can imagine how much of a predicament that would be if you were that vulnerable, because like warfare is about seizing advantage and capitalizing on vulnerability, being deceptive so as to capitalize on vulnerability, achieve an objective, and further seize advantage to achieve hegemony culturally, economically, military. That's what war is. So if you can appreciate what that would feel like if you had been otherwise healthy, but you're compromised because you just tipped something heavy over on yourself. Here goes the most formidable, strongest thing that ever crossed your path since Paul Bunyan. Where I live at, there used to be a big old mural of Paul Bunyan and his ox like that for a long time. I think it's still there. That's what it'd be like to meet up with Paul Bunyan, and he's trained to help people, EMT. What would that be like if you were that vulnerable and they've been training that commando stuff? They've been training that Rambo stuff, overkill like that. They've been training like that. Now you get to experience that. That shows you how formidable that stuff is. But the only reason I mentioned that is because I was watching a video about Delta where they proceed to present that stuff as that's cool, overtraining, overstrong, beyond ninjas in the 21st century with all the weapon gadgetry, that stuff. But they're just showing what it looked like when somebody tap out of that, and that's called Victor Whiskey. But then he was saying, yeah man, so you can be in this training and you can Victor Whiskey, and then we're gonna get you we're gonna put you in front of a TV and we're gonna get you something nice to eat, and we're not really gonna look at you another way. But if you have a change of mind, nah man, because you had a change of heart. You can change your mind, but you can't change your heart. But I was saying is that is actually not, what's deeper than that would be actually more of a failure, is that you get mixed in peer pressure. You get mixed in some killer stuff, Rambo stuff. You have these formidable people who are more skillful than you. It's a form of influence to be more skilled or versed in something. You have all this stuff going on. You have all your aspirations, your fears. You see what things about. You have one misgiving about it for any reason, for ethics, for fear. I'm not trying to big up fear, but even fear, if you're honest, because a lot of people aren't honest. What would you like to? What's your deal breaker for yourself? What is one way you would not like to transition out of this life? For me, that would be like to be compromised as undercover, or just to lie, to be compromised for lying. People that really know about life, they know that drowning is also one of the worst things that a person would not like to experience. But there's other things like that. What would you not like to experience? Dang man, this stuff is kind of scary. I knew that guns were real, but I had never actually heard what one sounds like. If I'm being honest, I wouldn't want to be around that stuff when you got 100 of them, when you got 1,000 of them, and you got bombs going on, and maybe worse or stuff than that. I may not want to be about that. Victor Whiskey, that's actually more brave than you think about it is, because you're like, hey man, this happens to real stuff, man. I know it's with the G. I didn't know what the macho stuff was like. Man, I got this. I still got a lady back home. I still like her and stuff, man. Y'all go over that way, or maybe you had to change your heart. Like when I was around that type of training, there was a trainee, and he just sat pretzel style, and he started meditating with a formidable military person. Hey, and you would think that the military person is more cool than him doing that. But that military person don't give a damn about him. If he had lost a limb and he's no longer ethically or tactically viable for the military, he's just a liability at that point. And if they're honest, they look at him as liability. Damn, we gotta send him for the next 5 decades to the VA. That's a lot of money. That's what people are really thinking. Damn, oh yeah, I'm not saying people don't believe in their cause, but if you're compromised, that person training you, they're not about to help you. They didn't help you get through life to get to that point. They're not going to help you really actually get through that training. They're going to challenge you, which you can gain from challenge, how you would accept a challenge. But they can't actually, if they wanted to, do that training for you, do your deployment for you, do your however you would get maimed, handle your conscience if you maim someone else. So to each their own, man. No, man, I'd rather meditate, and you're not actually one to judge me for that. But what would be a weak position is that if you actually made a choice for yourself to stand down or walk away, and then you come back. So what I'm saying is that when you're at someone else's beck and call, like even if anyone's ever had a personal trainer, personal trainers don't necessarily make you stronger. They don't necessarily do you a service. They do themselves a service because it's personal training for money, at least enough money to afford a decent standard of living, a coveted standard of living in inflation. That's money, baby. That's cash money, baby. The rock and roll, the good to go like that, baby. We have made the money like that. But it's not necessarily from doing you a service or making you strong. So I think you do things stronger when you do them of your own initiative. Even if you're in a gym, if you actually listen to your real instincts in a gym, dang, that looks cool. Ooh, that feels kind of, if you actually listen to your body in a gym, you could improvise exercises more challenging and actually more worthwhile and suitable than these people who are, oh, what you really got to do is hold it like that and this and that. But there's limitations of perception. They can't actually see what you're doing completely, and they also can't feel, because you do things better and more sturdy by feeling it. So I'm just saying is that anything you do of your own accord, you can do it 10 times stronger. So but it is daunting and if you can imagine how difficult it'd be to go through boot camp, it's not just the physical exertion that's difficult. It's the physical exertion under the initiative of another person, because you no longer have the initiative so much as you're being told what to do. So doing that exertion under orders, I think that orders, they stifle you because you're obeying, but obeying is not the same thing as I think it's better to be a commander. Is it better to command or be obeyed? Oh yeah, it's better to be a commander. The commander's cool with all these stars. We had to obey for a long time before he was some way good to go to command. But I say you can actually command yourself at any point, and that's a stronger position. So I just want to start out with that. I was starting out today, and also with that is that we have to. I think we can seize opportunities, and there's all different degrees of entitlement. We're in a very entitled society. Whether things are going in your favor or not, a lot of our mind frame, our experience, our reality, and our training is that of different degrees of entitlement and stratification of privilege. That guy looks like a regular guy that would be good to go to sit during regular working hours and be okay to sit somewhere content like that. It looks different post-pandemic. Things don't look the same as they would. So an actual working age person, viable, healthy person that had enough leisure time on their hands, but also health to enjoy themselves in a working day, that degree of autonomy and agency, it's not as a profound seeming then, but it kind of more so is now. But that's very appropriate in this society. This person, so you have some important people, right? Some business people. Because they're in a suit, you think that, oh yeah, it is good that they're not actually working. I can't see them working, and they're telling people what to do, and people are more so deferring and deprecating to them because they would look that put together. That is that. And then, oh, that person does have something on their back, or it looks like a blanket. So it would make sense that nobody respects them, even though they may have actually they may have put more serious, earnest, worthwhile, productive contribution to their society, to their community, than that very business person that very day. And the business person could also be doing things that have externalities. An externality is the byproduct, repercussion, intended or unintended, but a lot of times glossed over. That any interest has like a counter interest. Try as you may. So a lot of businesses can be doing as much damage. So here go the reps, the shareholders, mind you, they don't even do as much work as a CEO. You have the shareholder of the nuclear plant. Yeah, they have the resources and the wherewithal, and they're very convincing, sitting somewhere doing nothing. Then you have a regular person that they got their life together. They were doing so well that actually they're undermined by people in their life, and it got them down bad like that. But they didn't give up the fight. You look at them as they're bogus, but that's an example of some of the arbitrariness, but also how, yeah, this society is exactly stratified like that. But it doesn't just stop there, in that we're entitled in such ways that because you have an idea, let me sit on that idea, and maybe, of course, tomorrow or a better time, I can offer that and render that. Nah, ain't nothing promised. Not even another opportunity to hop up on camera. Not another opportunity to do nothing. So seize the day, seize the opportunity. So I had started this morning with some content, and I had more ideas then, but the bandwidth went out with the adapter, and then I availed myself to actually get to working out while I was there. But I wanted to conclude a couple of those ideas, and that when I was talking about, so someone like gave me a good segue, like any challenge, any engagement really is tractable to improvise on, and therefore to be creative with, and therefore be excellent with. Because I think, and to that point too about your initiative, just like you sustain your own initiative when you make your own choices and you own up to them and you're honest with yourself. Also, if you appreciate your vicinity and how you would be maybe subtly inspired, or just it would occur to you to do something differently than you're in the habit of momentum of doing, that can shear you of your habits, which can be anticipated by other people and also be a disservice to you because you're comfortable in them and you're not totally challenging yourself. That's another, just initiative, congruence of purpose, such as to actually be whatever degree of a commander of your own life and live up to that. Just like a commander would send someone or themselves to their death and live up to that, you can also do the same thing from whatever position you are, as you have the inspiration and the heart to, and as you really know where you really know where the lines of what's appropriate for you and those who depend on you or love you. And sometimes you could also get past that, so you know how strong you are or not when you get around your peers. You know who loves you or not back home. That might be more dishonest to go further into something that you know you can't handle, or might not actually be the best interest of people you love once that occurs to you, whoever's around you in your midst or not. I'm not talking about like deserting once you're, there's a difference between being initiated in something and actually there's a difference between being deployed and being trained. That thing was talking about training that I'm responding to, but there's a difference between an actual imminent real life being under fire. That's different than being under training. But even too, in fire, there's more decisions sometimes than it would seem, and sometimes the greatest valor, mind you, is to stand for what's right, whether that's a command or whether that's to walk off of a command. But what I was thinking is that I was drawing correlations between El Nino, police officers being derided as pigs, and Aaliyah, no less, the singer Aaliyah. What could any of those have anything the hell to do with anything? One is that if you appreciate El Nino, that came out when that was happening. That was about the time of the early 2000s, and there was a boy in Cuba who his whereabouts and his guardianship was at jeopardy. So to call something El Nino at that time, it may have had overtones that would have been politically significant and topical. Just to call something El Nino. What does El Nino mean? The boy. I thought after this, I was talking about the Halloween blizzard in Minnesota of the early 90s. And that very year of the 90s, I had got away from Minnesota of my parents choosing what they had going on in the Southwest. So I missed that. So I could extrapolate. You know, you can reason anything, and you can frame anything. Maybe El Nino is, where had that little boy been that we were supposed to drop the blizzard on? And now the weather's crazy because it's kind of trying to catch up with that little boy. Had been me, the Nino, El Nino. But not to be light about that situation with Elian Gonzalez, but I was just pointing out that that's significant that at that time, the late 90s, early 2000s, you couldn't get away from the idea of Elian Gonzalez. That was you just heard that name, Elian Gonzalez. It sounds very important. Everybody heard something about it. It may have meant more or less to other people. It may have been like just political or media theater or not, but that's where the times were. The times of the late 90s had the zeitgeist. the word for the current times, like if you can imagine like a Bob Marley song from like the 60s and 70s, or maybe a Jimi Hendrix song like we gotta get out of here. If this that's actually that Jimi Hendrix song is almost similar to what I'm talking about walking off of a training or something like that, because I think that he had a stint in the military and he got away from it. There must be some way out of here. So nobody yet so Jimi Hendrix was cooler than VW, and people wouldn't have had cool experiences with VWs without Jimi Hendrix, but nobody yet called Jimi Hendrix Victor Whiskey. But you could have as soon called that song of his, we gotta get out of here. There must be some way out of here. If it's the last thing we ever do, you could have as soon called that song Victor Whiskey. But the influence that Jimi Hendrix had at that time for the people that were being confronted with conscription, under conscription, and suffering conscription, and suffering loved ones at conscription, and suffering maybe losing people to conscription. Jimi Hendrix, he nailed that. That's called the zeitgeist. Similar to that, you would have had Bob Dylan making songs about that time, like "Don't Speak Too Soon, for the World's Still in Spin," and there's no telling who that it's naming. I did a song. I did a paper in school at Berkeley, and I was talking about some of the thing I'm getting ready to talk about, and I was referencing the impact of music and people like Bob Marley at the time of that era, not having actually experienced it, but having heard a lot about it from my mother and father, who were like of that age, in that generation. And my teacher was like, "Damn it, best paper in the class." He said they would add like commentary to all the different students' papers that we would present to each other, and were accessible and part of our grade to critique one another. He's like, "Damn it, best." He's like, "I don't know this bullshit. I'm sorry, I'm in a public place. I don't know what these other students, your peers, and my students are talking about, but this had been the best paper in the class. Very interesting. Very interesting. Best paper right here." He just said that. He just called it out like that, talking about the zeitgeist. But that's what the zeitgeist is. But you can appreciate that Elian Gonzalez, that boy, he himself was a part of, or reminiscent of, or exactly on par with, in tapped into the current of the late 90s and early 2000s, for whatever it's worth, for whatever that means. That boy, at least once in his life, I talked to a Viking brother when I went up north, and he was saying, not to gloss over what he was teaching me, because it's solemn and a little bit kind of sacred and private, but he was saying, if you've ever had certain experiences, right, like say you did have someone, say Elian Gonzalez was a real situation. I don't know if that was real or that was staged. I'm not saying either way, but I don't know, because I wasn't there and I was very young. If that was real and somebody would have stuck their neck out, like sometimes people speak non-verbally. You stick your neck out, your vitality is in your neck. That's about the deepest thing you can do in life, is to stick your neck out for someone. If someone stuck out their neck for Elian Gonzalez, and they made an impression upon him, or they really did something outstanding for him, at least once in their life, and then after that they became an alcoholic, or they became a dipshit, or they became a politician or anything, at least once they were possessed of something called hell vigor. That's how a Viking told me. He said it would be called hell vigor. And I thought it meant like vigor within hell. But recently I talked to a great man, and he said that hell actually refers to light, hail. So when you're saying hail, that might be similar to hallelujah, but when you say hail or all hail, you're saying all light. When you say all hail the king, you're saying all light to the king. We are yet light. We can perceive light without anything being added to us. As we're born, we can exactly engage and meet and resonate with and become at least one in essence with whatever is conveyed over light at the spectrum that we convey. But also that goes into through our heart, our mind, will, and emotions, to our very well coordinated hands that can fashion anything. You can fashion light. You could ostensibly fashion another star. They say that in other countries, I think, if I'm not mistaken, China, they have made like a mini sun. China has made a mini sun. Such a thing is not out of reason, out of probability that people could get onto that. A mini sun first, a bigger sun second, a commensurate, that means equal sun second, a greater sun. It could be done conceivably. It's not. If we can improve at anything, as long as we can improve, nothing's impossible as long as we can improve. You can improve upon anything, but that too with being able to perceive, mind, will, and emotions, and manipulate up to and including another star where light comes from in the first place. So what came first? The light, the star, or the starlight? The star or the stardust? The star or the human? The star or the human's facility to perceive light, have a heart, and create anything with their hand. What they create hand better than a sun, then the person, then yet again the sun. Which came first? But I'm just saying that it's profound that we can see without we can see at all. With they would say like the naked eye, as though that's a limitation. But it's profound that we can see anything at all without anything being added to us, and how we can seamlessly, how the hand actually does respond to the eyes. I had a person training me on a motorcycle, on a driver, and she showed me a motorcycle video. And if you're on a motorcycle or doing anything, wherever your eyes go, your hands in a very sophisticated way that you know of and don't, your hand actually responds. Like if you wanted to actually read people, if you really wanted to read people, right? Not only their intentions, but no less their intentions, but that too their intentions. Your whatever is, you can't know exactly what someone's thinking because people have different references than you. So even if you look at the same thing, right? Like I'm at a table now. If I look at this table, that looks like a soup spoon, that looks like a fork, that looks like a knife. Some that works here, that looks like the spoons from last week. That looks like the new bowl we ordered. This looks like, things look very different based on your experience. That's called a sanskara in India. That's both your instincts prior to, during your time in utero, and some of how you correspond with your ancestors and their propensities and their experiences, and then your own life, different iterations, your whole life over to the present day, to the present moment, at different ranges, the significance of that, and what the imprints that leave on you, and then what you're able to perceive of anything, but that too ran through and filtered through your imprints, which can, in scientific terms, that'd be called RAS, reticular activation system. What registers in of all the broad, all the perception and influence in your environment, what actually registers to you, consciously, subconsciously, and unconsciously, that range is called your RAS. But it's deeper than just what you can perceive. It's what you can do, what you can think, what you think of, and on like that. It's called your sanskaras. That might even be a better word than talent. When people say like your innate propensities, it's along the lines of sanskara, and also that too not different than RAS. But the sanskara is very solemn and profound what that means, and I don't mean to appropriate that. But so you can't actually know what another person is thinking because you don't have the same imprints, and you can't exactly, even if you knew what they were, if you more or less knew what motivates them, you still don't know how they see things, so you don't know how they think. But you can know where their heart is at, and that too a degree of what they're seeing and what that means to them by looking at their hands, because it is yet hand-eye coordination, and I would be so much egregious, or maybe I would assume so much, deign so much as to say it might be at least hand-eye-heart coordination, if not gut too, if not throat too, if not weak in the knees. I get so weak in the knees I can hardly speak. But that's all connected to your hands. So if you just look at someone's hands at any time, it'll show you, it could give you an insight into what's in their heart. Like you would appreciate nonverbal communication, but not exactly someone's hands. But if you think about how deep your hands are connected to your eyes, and what is registering in your eyes, and what that means to you, and what you intend or intend not for yourself, it's somewhere in the hands that register like that. But so Elian Gonzalez, at least once, he was very pivotal and very influential. The whole world couldn't stop talking about him. But then at that same time, they presented something called El Nino. And so I'm saying is that like a lot of things are very calculated and dialed in. Like as media goes, anything with money on the line, people ain't playing about money. And there's money on the line whenever you have minds together and you're speaking for something. So media they don't do anything without thinking, without it being calculated and having implications. So now you would say, oh yeah, there's this one's social engineering, this is the agenda and stuff like that. But that didn't start now. That didn't even start with the industrial age. You had social engineering going way back. But so you're normally in the news. You're not in the news. They're not really like joking about a lot of things. The news, like they tell jokes, but you know it ain't funny, right? But you're joking now. You're also When have you heard news anchors Well, I might be a little bit going. I might be actually arbitrary with that. How often do you hear news anchors, meteorologists, as exactly what science is that is? How often do you hear a scientist call something in Spanish just for the sake of it? A meteorologist is gonna name something a Spanish word just for the heck of it like that. No, I don't think so. One is that it's not caused by it, but it's correlated to that you did have that situation with Alien Gonzalez, and I don't know specifically if the fiasco with crisis and incident of Alien Gonzalez. I don't know if that was precedent to El Nino or not. So I might actually be a little bit. I don't mean to be falsifying that, but I'm just drawing correlations, which is yet a form of knowledge and insight. But when they gloss over El Nino like that, oh yeah, that's just El Nino. That's just this crazy thing. They're having you look past that it could be less than congruent and less than enlightening, because sometimes you don't think about how the actual crux of the way that we exist in our stratification, in our assumptions, and in what's possible for us now and in the future. You don't think about how much of the crux of that, our paradigm, can sometimes be at stake and at play right there like that. And the people that are actually savvy enough and well connected enough to lead our entire collective thought like that, as a people, as a hemisphere, as a nation, they are that savvy a lot of times to anticipate and be cognizant of how pivotal anything can be, any idea can be. There's nothing actually of greater leverage than contraband. You can be the most sophisticated law enforcement person, military person, anything, a sports person, athlete. If you come across the right, wrong contraband, or someone that's been trained by the right, wrong contraband, that can upset your training, your commander, your interests, your nations, anything you got going on. It can be upset by the right degree, the right appropriate, not the best or the most expensive, but the appropriate contraband can flip the leverage of anything. There is no greater leverage than contraband. Contraband might be called leverage. According to another YouTuber, I can't remember his name, what runs a prison, it's not the guards, and it's not the savviness of the inmates or the leadership or the community at large. It's the contraband at presence in the prison. If you send someone to prison, right? How are you going to survive prison? Are you going to become a holy person? Are you going to be a tough person? Are you gonna kowtow? Are you gonna be a tough guy? You could do any of that. But my money, my wager, I'm not about to try it. I'm not gonna attempt my own theory. But my wager would be that you would get through that with contraband. If you survived prison well, it would be because you're doing contraband well. You have a facility with contraband. But the greatest contraband is ideas. If you had to put it to something objective, it would be a book, because books can be shared, they can survive censorship, and they can survive time as electronic stuff, and even sometimes oratory can't. You can find a great book that has been lost to oratory and human experience, and there's ideas that remain that are contraband, but so ideas and understanding is contraband. So if you got a whiff of the right concept or idea, that can upset your entire training and the society that is contingent on people like you being trained like you. And I think that might have near about emerged when the subject of when people couldn't look past El Nino. What is the weather doing right here? This is El Nino. Don't worry about El Nino. And then it had been El Nino, just like that. But sometimes, like I went to school in Tennessee, Germantown High School, Germantown, Tennessee, Eastern Memphis, near the FedEx hub, and there was a train track that went down there. There's a Poplar Avenue. It's called Poplar Avenue. There's a historic and still well used train track there. And then at my school, you had some history teachers, and those history teachers were very savvy, and they had metal detectors, and you could find artifacts from the Civil War right there behind our very school. You could actually find like soup cans, magazine casings, bullet cartridges, and different unique things from the Civil War right on the grounds of our school. And our history teacher was like that. But what he told us is that during the time of the Civil War, At one phase in the Civil War, there had been a general that came through that very train tracks in the vicinity of Germantown High School. A real history buff would know, maybe a real history buff. Will the real Slim Shady please stand up? Will the real history buffs please stand up? A real history buff might be familiar with what I'm referring to. Ostensibly, according to a great history teacher that I experienced in Germantown, Tennessee, Germantown High School, a faculty member of a history, connoisseur, is that there was a general or some significant person in the Civil War that came through that train track, that position, Germantown, Tennessee, and he was nearly captured. It's appreciated that if he would have been captured, I'm not sure if he was captured or he evaded capture, but I think he evaded capture. If he had been captured, and then what he actually went on to do, and I don't think that was the great Robert E. Lee. I don't mean to be calling him great. Like, some people don't appreciate his position in a war, but anyone in a war is in a war. But you can't take away the great things that people do, even when people do things horrible. An example of that is like some of your people, like your different serial, this and that people still give them their flowers and are interested and somewhat celebrate them in like infamy, because there were certain things about what they did that were disciplined or well organized that amounts to a form of greatness, even as they were doing things that were very tragic and less than great. But Robert E. Lee was from that standpoint, and just in terms of organization, discipline, and maybe creativity and intelligence and congruence with his cause for right or wrong, you could say he was a great person. But I don't think that was him that was almost captured. But there was someone that was almost captured at that point in that position. Had that been the case, that's kind of like a little bit like of a Back to the Future kind of scenario, but it had actually occurred. If that had been any different, I might not be sitting here now. You might not be watching me. This entire life, this country that people like or don't like, but the way that it is, it may not have existed like that. That gets into a semantic discussion of fatalism. Is that, did we really have any choice in anything? What is cause and effect? How much do we affect anything? How much could anything have been different than anything? We don't actually, I don't know that you could lay a finger on that verbatim. But that's pivotal. But I think that with with El Nino, I'm not saying that El Nino had to be that critical, but you could appreciate as much of insight in El Nino and the underpinning of our society that's based on stratification of privilege, and also exacting and employment of coercion in the terms of finance that amounts to different degrees of usury, usury as in debt and interest, and coercion in terms of enticement and subjection and leverage. That's what money is. But money. So there's different sides of things. Money has as the darker part of money goes, it has usury, debt that amounts to extortion and bondage. And then it also has leverage that amounts to enticement, advertising, soliciting, and commissioning, and like different transactional things, as it gets all the way up to the point of overriding another person's free will. If a person takes you in trust and confidence, they can take your freedom and they can make you act against their own will. They could potentially make you act against your own nearest of kin and yourself and your best interest if someone had enough leverage over you in terms of honesty and dishonesty. But that too, similarly with finance, not the same way, but similar. But that too, all that is contingent upon our understanding of time, linear time. So when you had El Nino take place, if you really understood if you really actually understood the way that the planetary motion, if you understood the motion of the planets, the influence of the planets, how time is calibrated, how the seasons are calibrated, but that too, how the seasons exist and how we exist with, beyond, past, and dispensing with, and understanding our notion of time, what's arbitrary about that and what's congruent. Because what's worse than a lie is a half lie, a half truth. I think that our notion of time is a half truth, and it's actually worser, because you can interject a greater calamity by being somewhat by having a notion of truth. So I'm not saying that timekeeping is bogus, but our understanding of the experience of time and the conditioning of it is that when you're in school, you're trained to that clock. recess frees you. You really feel good about recess. Recess doesn't only feel good because you get to play, but it feels good that you would get to play, and the teacher can't say nothing about it directly, and the teacher also enjoy it, but that too because the clock said it. So there's levels to things, right? There's levels to monsters, there's levels to dinosaurs. When you're growing up, you are you. You have good things and bad things about you, but you also have to you have to tap out in front of your older sibling, and sometimes your younger sibling. Your siblings have to tap out in front of your parents. Your parents have to tap out in front of your school leaders. Your school leaders have to tap out, and sometimes are your teachers. Your teachers have to tap out in front of the clock. All those people have to tap out in front of money, and money checks in with and works based off the clock. So that's how profound the clock is. But with El Nino and El Nina is that I was doing a video saying that we had the Halloween blizzard in Minnesota that took place on October 31st. I think 1991 that was, and that's still infamous to this day. Oh, the Halloween blizzard. A lot of people, old heads and even young people, they know about, and they sometimes talk about the Halloween blizzard. But why was a Halloween blizzard different than any other day? Because it snowed on some kids trick-or-treating. Since that time, there's probably been more inclement weather that happened to children and people on Halloween than that very blizzard. But they're not as famous as that blizzard. I've said that according to India, Bharata, some of the teaching of India, but that we too may understand at an instinctual level, is that you have appreciably 6 seasons, not 4. You have December and November, December, which is beginning winter, but still winter. You have January, February, which is frigid winter, truly cold winter. Then you have March, April, which is like whatever, it's a transition. It's actually, it's the birth of spring. You have June, July, May, June, which is proper spring. That's like early summer, early spring, but that's its own season. Then you have July, August, which is true summer, hotter than shit summer. Excuse my language. If you go to San Diego, you have June gloom. It's still moderate. You can tolerate June gloom in San Diego. But once you get to July, August in San Diego, it's now really summer, and there's no playing about that. It's very, very, very hot. But that's still similar to the world over, is that May and June is one thing. July and August is its own thing. Hey man, we know we're all friends. We're in the family. We're in the same class. We're in the same job. But we're over here and y'all over there. Like that. And don't come over here, buddy. That's also like the seasons. May, June is its thing. July, August is its thing. September, October is real proper fall. Like where I'm at in Minnesota, they'll anticipate when the leaves are about to be beautiful, and it'll be different for different ranges of the state. But I would bet it's always right there between September and October. So, but also what you call Halloween, October 31st, and then also that too, November 1st. In Latin cultures, in America, before America was America, but in Latin people, they celebrate Dia de los Muertos November 1st. That's November now. America celebrates Halloween October 31st. That's actually pivotal because that's the fall equinox. In the planetary terms, that's actually a cusp and a threshold that occurs right there. There's a equal one that occurs in spring. I think that corresponds with Easter, if I'm not mistaken. That's the beginning of the equinox. So in a greater sense, rather than to say that we have 6 seasons, you could actually say we have 2. We have an up and a down, like a Ferris wheel. That ascendant is from the spring equinox, and then it becomes in a descendant at the fall equinox, exactly on Halloween and Dia de los Muertos, and that corresponds in those cultures of the wizened people of Europe and then America, and the Latin people of America. That corresponds with something of death. Whatever is possible and understandable of the liminal threshold between what it is and means to be living and what it had meant to be living. There's something of significance about that day like that, because just like the seasons transition like that, there's a little bit of, okay, are we now in the ascendant or the descendant? Are we now actually going up or down? If you can imagine like anything that goes up must come down. maybe two, that too which must go down must come up, because there is no up and down without a reference, neither left nor right, neither east nor west, neither dark nor light, day or night. It's all exactly relative to your position. It would have meaning based on your position. But whatever it means to be free fall like that for a moment, ooh, ooh, that point, that free fall like that, that's what's occurring at that equinox, and that's what people have sense, and then they have symbology. They may actually understand it deeper than I'm saying it there. I'm more so speaking in scientific terms of the planets, but they may understand it deeper spiritually, which is not different than the planets, or literally better than science. That's possible too. But what make people be like, damn, how did we have a storm like that on Halloween? How do we have a Halloween blizzard? That don't even sound right. Halloween blizzard? How do those words go together? Halloween blizzard. That might be because it upset people's notion of, yeah, actually October is for fall, November is for winter. If it had been the November 1st winter, the Dia de los Muertos blizzard, the November blizzard, that wouldn't have the same ring as the Halloween blizzard. So I just wanted to point that out. But with the deeper thing I want to say is that one thing can exist in another thing, and at the same time, to a different degree. That's a better way to understand time. A better way to understand time and also cause and effect than to just call it time or cause and effect is to say echo. Things are always echoing. So an echo never really stops. Neither does a person, neither does a place, neither does an experience. According to Osho, if you get on a train and ride it, hey man, where y'all going? Where'd y'all come from? And you're telling jokes, or maybe you're arguing, that train ride, it never stops in your heart. It's actually interesting, when you get in a car and you accelerate and then you stop, that energy, it actually never stops. It just dissipates. So when you burn rubber, when you put it pedal to the metal, whatever energy you loosed by creating that momentum, and then you dissipate it with the brakes, when you hit the brakes, I think the ground takes it, but that energy never stops. It just goes on like that. Anything that you start, it never stops. Such as our experiences and such as our past. But without a position, there's past and future and present don't have the same meaning without like a reference. So some people are like, damn man, how did that much time go by? Damn, how are we still here? Or why is that taking so long? Because time doesn't have the same meaning without a reference. And you find out when you're asleep. Sometimes, like if you fall asleep during the afternoon and you wake up in the middle of the afternoon, it feels like morning, but people are still active like daytime. It baffles you, and it's kind of like otherworldly, but it's because you don't actually experience time the same way when you're sleeping, because you don't perceive references the same way in your sleep. But with the El Nino thing is that when you have like yesterday, I'm in the north here, we've been trying to get cold. We've been having some real frigid cold lately, like dangerous cold already in December. But then we had a day that felt like spring. I'm saying it didn't feel like spring. That actually was spring. What we had yesterday was actually spring. So before you get to have a real spring, you work up to it and you actually have some days of spring. But also that too, before you have next year, you have some days and seasons of next year now. So with the El Nino effect was actually betraying, contrary to our training and our notions and our pretensions and our likings and dislikings, is that the seasons don't occur now and then they're gone, and then there's a new season and that season's forgotten. They're actually always at play and imminent, and there is no exact forward, backward, past, present, future in our arbitrary terms. And that's probably what's understood to meteorologists in a light version, as much as they're able to anticipate the weather like a week out, but they can actually anticipate it years out if they're honest. And that's what they couldn't help but have to talk about when they actually got that crazy El Nino and El Nino. What's going on here? It's not only that the ecosystem in the environment is out of whack because we are extravagant and we are misappropriating energy, and we're also very powerful. Our mind, our reasoning, and our activities are very powerful. I think that we're actually the imminent and a natural custodians of the earth, for better or worse. And we've been more so relishing things, frolicking and indulging things, such as to not be, and also getting over on one another as to not be harmonic. The better word than law is harmony. you have no workable anything without harmony, neither that to law. So when people make up all these laws, as they're believable or not, but still necessary, what they're reaching for is harmonics, according to Tashriq Bey, and the deeper principles of indigenous people, like the Anansi, the Iroquois, also known as the Anansi, who had influence if they weren't also appropriated for the Constitution. That actual, like the checks and balances in the Constitution, legislative, judicial, and executive, that balance, that rock, paper, scissors like that, that's some of the understandings of the indigenous that speak to the balances. And since as soon as we would have disrespected them, we're no longer in harmony, we're no longer having law, we're no longer truly a nation, or had been a nation. But nature too, it has these balances. And so yes, it's out, it may be different now because of our activity, but that doesn't mean that it's not still calibrating itself and checked, and that it can't play back out. Whether we destroy ourselves or not, whether we wipe ourselves off the face of the earth will still yet come back into balance, because the earth itself is bigger than our activities. Whether there's things walking on the earth or not, it's still viable in its balances. But that too is that past, present, and future don't, even as the seasons go, that how do you know we're in winter? Because the seasons are like that. How do you know what time of day it is? Because that's where the sun at, but that's a mini season. One day is a mini season. Then you have a broader season, as in weeks, months, and years. But they don't exist in strict terms of forward and backward, future, past, present, as we have those notions that serve wage slavery. But also, things can exist at the same time and in a latent state in what is expressed. So as I'm saying different things, if you actually saw what my voice looks like and how it would break down in terms of audio, which is echo. Another word for audio is echo. A better word for audio is echo. If you actually saw the audio I'm saying, the echo of what I'm saying, there's some things that are eccentric that make me sound like me, but there's other things that are harmonic and sound like you and are you, but they're not as expressed in me. But all things are in me. But that much, the way it's in me makes me me, but all things are in me, as in you. I'm in you, you are in me, but differently. But so one day is in another day, 1 year is in another year, 1 decade is in the prior year, 1 year is in the future 2 decades, like that. And you see some of that sophistication in what was taking place with El Nino. And sometimes, like in the last couple of years, we've had some mild winter. Just give me a little bit of mild side. The cold, you gotta know about the hot mild, but we're getting into the cold mild winter. You let them boys sleep like that, and then when they get shocked, we about to break out the real winter on their ass like that. They have been sleeping, cause ain't nobody about to get over on their boy. Oh man, winter got a little trick up and sleep like that. Let the boys sleep like that with the mild one. But that mildness, whether it be a day, you had a day of spring yesterday. That's working up to and not different than the real spring we're gonna get to have if we live that long to the next spring. And that's what's going on with El Nino. So I'm saying that in the media, when they gloss over things, oh, that's just a little El Nino. Don't worry about a little El Nino. And then there go the El Nino the next year. They're glossing over that, because if you actually appreciated that, to however they appreciate that, maybe not as succinctly or more succinctly than I'm saying it, but the way they sold you that one, to this little cute thing they said like that didn't raise an eyebrow, but they also weren't expecting that to raise an eyebrow with you. But it's a little bit too convenient and too savvy even for them, because they're not even that funny. They're not even that creative to call something like that. They're not that much, because they're that much, because they're all cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So it's all about the money always, even the cute stuff, even the little names they do. It's about the money, but it's also about keeping people, you have something called blind, deaf, and dumb. So all people, to different degrees, as they don't look into things, are blind, deaf, and dumb. A small fraction of people look into things, so they're awake. And then a little bit bigger fraction than that, but less than that, would be blind, deaf, and dumb, understand things better, but they capitalize on people not looking into things. And that's an example like that. And then I was going to talk about Aaliyah with that. Is that so the artist Aaliyah, like I was saying, Elian Gonzalez, at one point, he was part of the zeitgeist of the 90s. You can't remember the 90s if you're old enough without remember Elian Gonzalez, but you also can't remember the 90s without remembering Aaliyah. If you were savvy, if you were just a young person, you have to. Aaliyah is like the 90s. So what I'm saying is that some situations and incidents and also ideas they exactly go to the crux of what we know and also what we are, and what we know about or don't know about, right? So with Alien Gonzalez, I don't know if that's actually a true incident or if that was staged. I don't know that. That might be something that we know of, but may not know, right? But also that spoke to the spirit of that times, the zeitgeist. Aaliyah, we know of. She herself, I think, as an artist and as a person, was a lot of who we are, because it's not just that you like her that much and that you see yourself in her. No, you are her. She was a very special, beautiful person. Her essence, and then also her what she meant to that time, and what converges on the idea and thought of her, our precious late Aaliyah, and also our precious young Alien Gonzalez when he was young. But similar to the way that things can be, so just like you have different echoes that you right now as I'm existing, there are echoes of the past. Like, for example, I had an idea to buy this shirt about 4 months ago at a gas station because they had it there. So as you're seeing this, you're seeing an echo of my choice 4 months ago, what I could afford 4 months ago, what was made maybe 4 months before that, what I kept clean or didn't. As I appear, you're seeing many different echoes of the past in so many ways broader than that. But that too, there is no future without a present or a past that had been part of that. From that standpoint, the future is the past and the present, and the past is the present and the past and the future, and the present is the past and the future, like that. And there's nothing limiting about that or fixed about that or arbitrary like that in the truest sense, because nobody truly actually understands audio. Some people, they know about music, yeah, hip hop producer, yeah, Quincy. Now I stand down. You got the great Quincy Jones, but he, to be honest, he doesn't know all there is to know about audio. Not even Quincy Jones. That is echo. Even Quincy Jones doesn't know all there is to know about echo. Neither does Einstein if he know all there is to know about time, which is also echo. If Einstein were honest, yeah, he probably like to be celebrated, but if he's honest, yeah, man, I don't know. He doesn't know all that stuff. So there's different ways that the past, present, and future exist together, but also what's about to happen, getting ready to happen, is happening now before it had already taken shape or form, or actually transitioned out of form. So they say that, according to Osho, when a human being is getting ready to pass away, there's an appreciable change in their aura. The aura doesn't just mean the light. It's kind of scary that I got a light. I'm talking about aura, this and that. I got a light shining on my forehead. Aura doesn't just mean light. It means the range of view that's more finer, congruent than light, which is why it doesn't have meaning based on light, because light doesn't have contrast with it. So you can't actually you can perceive it, but you can't see it. There are things about a person that you can perceive, but you cannot see with the naked eye, untrained, or unless you're inspired under certain circumstances and inspiration. But it's appreciated that, according to Osho, there's an appreciable change in a person's aura at least 6 months, if not more, before they would pass away. When a person's going to pass away or not, whatever cause and effect is at play that would have a person pass away, whatever precursor. Oh man, that fool had been wearing a Vikings jacket, and also they were a big fan. They had a girlfriend. They're getting ready to have a girlfriend in New York City, and then they're about to take a trip to New York City, and they don't appreciate that Viking time over there in New York City where they rock with the Giants. You could, if you were sophisticated enough, you could see the actual causes at play of me getting at least my butt kicked in New York City, based on the fact that I'm rocking this right now, and I'm the type of person to make statements online, and I might be the type of person to be on this and that app that could also go. If you were that sophisticated, that's actually existing now. But I used to have jobs like where I'd be a pizza delivery driver, and I had these beautiful ideas of music occur to me. And that's actually why I'm doing music now, at least 11 years later, because of those ideas that came to me. Some of those beauty. I was doing delivery at 2, 3, 4 in the damn morning. Someone might be from St. Paul or not. I'm not gonna blast no side of the city or hood, but whatever side of the city of St. Paul has whatever reputation, I'd be out there exactly at 2, 3, 4 in the damn morning, getting it how I live, with a little old yellow, not Red Riding Hood, Mr. Yellow Riding Hood, in a little hatchback like that, doing deliveries like that, vulnerable like that, don't know shit like that, never heard of shit like that. Good to go. Oh man, they're tipping me. This is cool. I got cash in my pocket. Good to go. Like that. 3 a.m. Haha. And I didn't even listen to music back then because I was about that life. I was trying to pay attention. but I was that much out there when I'm having these beautiful ideas occur to me. That might actually be because I was inches away, decisions away, orders being placed or not being placed away from having my fate handed to me. So it's not necessarily, auspicious means promising. It's not necessarily promising that beautiful ideas would occur to you, that you would begin to appear beautiful or beautiful things would happen to you. Because that might be part of you actually transitioning into something more beautiful than this life. But so much as the future of you is also you, but more so of you because it's drawing nigh. That might be what's beautiful about a person. So I watched this interview about Aaliyah on 106 in Park. I didn't watch it then, but I watched it recently. There's an interview of Aaliyah on 106 in Park, and it's like a staggered interview. It wasn't actually like curated. It was a beautiful interview, but however they staggered it, it's like a two-part interview. I don't think AJ was on there. It was I can't remember the girl's name that was with AJ, but they had really, sometimes you don't know a woman well enough until you see her around another woman, because women are a lot more of themselves around other women, partly because they respect women more. I will be so bold to say I think women respect women more than they respect men, even their husband, even their boyfriend, even the cool guy. I think women actually respect women more. They would like to impress other women before they like to impress men. And some of their choices around men are to impress other women, if you're honest about it. Women are simply beautiful to men, but also to women and boys and girls and elderly people. Women are beautiful like that. But they bring out the best in men, but also they bring out the best in women and the real women. So when Aaliyah and her are talking like that, they're having a real conversation I don't think a man could have drawn it out like that. Because that whole time AJ would have been talking to her. Yeah, he's talking to her, but she's fly as hell, and he's a little bit adjusting for her flyness, and she can feel that he's adjusting to her to impress her or not. But with that girl, she was really being herself, and that girl's like, yeah, man. But what's it about Aaliyah and all these? Man, I just like the simple things, just the simple things. But at that time, one of her own tracks came on in the background. I don't know if they could hear it or not. That sometimes, like I was talking about the zeitgeist, the spirit of the times. 106 in Park was also the zeitgeist. You know about late 90s, early 2000s when you watch 106 in Park. That's where we were at. That's what people really dressed like. That's what people really tuned into. That's what people were really watching that would make it appear on 106 in Park. That's really what the times were about, was 106 in Park, but also Aaliyah too. But in that interview, there's one of her songs that's I Need a Ride or Die Chick. I think it was just the instrumental. That song is so beautiful because Aaliyah's on that track, but also DMX was on that track. And I think DMX actually loved Aaliyah. That's none of my damn business. But if I look at the music they made and the chemistry between them and the statements he made after she passed away and the music video he did that he was believable, I think he actually, if you want to see love, I think DMX actually loved Aaliyah. I think she dated, I think she was about to date Jay-Z. She had something to do with Jay-Z, and she actually got on with Dame Dash. I know that. But I think that DMX loved her. I really do. And then when she's talking in that interview, that very track, I Need a Ride or Die Chick, come on behind, and you see what this life is about. The best things, I think for the best things in life to happen, heaven, earth, and hell have to converge, because hell is part of the things that make you better too. Hell is what actually gives you your hard knocks and your lessons too, and holds you accountable too. Heaven gives you mercy to survive the lesson, and earth gives you the stage to do that, such that they all have to converge for the best of things. But I think that in that interview, when Aaliyah's talking, that's not very far away from, I don't mean to be heinous referencing her passing, because it was untimely when she passed, and it's tragic. Anything you watch about her is tragic because we lost her. But when you hear that song come on in the back, an actual duet with her and someone who actually loves her, and people who are all, and those two people were a lot of the times, anybody that can remember the 90s, DMX had something to do with your development. Whether you liked him or not, DMX was a lot of who men are, and women too, and of the 90s who were young, and Aaliyah was a lot of that too. And then you have them together, and they actually have a real chemistry. I'm not saying they were lovers, but they had a chemistry that was that of love. They had love between them. And then that comes over her in that interview. She's not talking about that song. I don't know what she's talking about at that point, but you can see that wash over her, kind of like an appreciable change in her aura as she actually was close to transitioning. So you may have actually seen some of her transition and some of what she is, which is part of her life, her background, and then what she is hereafter. You see it occur like that. If someone would actually be interested to check out that interview, Aaliyah on 106 in Park, And so that's the El Nino effect. Is that, man? We're all gonna get out of here sometime, and we're gonna have an aura, and I just hope that our aura is as clean and beautiful as Aaliyah when that happens. But I just want to point out some of that stuff. And then when I said this and that about pig, this and that, it's just that similar to how they gloss that over with Aaliyah, is that there's other things that they gloss over, and it's how things operate. So when you think that police officers are dumb pigs, that helps you slip up enough, and you don't take that serious, that breathalyzer you might face, or that time you might actually get caught. It's because you slip on them boys because you think they're pigs like that, but they would have you think they're pigs like that, so you can slip up and they can continue to have the lifestyle that make you call them a pig. But I'm just saying that similar, they sell you certain fast ones like that in life, but it makes you look past the way things really work. And if you could actually nail and appreciate the subtlety and sophistication of certain principles, such as the echoing of life that transcends cause and effect, the fact that we should respect all people, but also there's a lot of money to be made by us messing up and slipping up around people that we think that we give less than respect, call them a pig. But that I'm just showing how what we look over, it can have more meaning, but it helps things continue to be exactly how they are. And a lot of things are bogus, if you're honest. A lot of things are jacked up as they don't have to be. But the first step was just to be honest and to flesh out these things. Because you can, like, how would you know you had a real, like, if you had someone if you had the world's greatest diamond, I wouldn't want to have the world's greatest diamond on my hands, because there's a lot of misfortune that has come with that. But if you had the Kanur diamond, what would be scary is some people that just start brainstorming, like they just get to reasoning like I am. If I had made this whole video talking about the Kanur diamond like that, pulling stuff out of my backside, but also doing my due diligence and referencing different than that's how you would get over on a diamond. But that's how you'd also get over on the truth. Reason with what reason you have, and also reference what references you have access to, your own experience, and also the World Wide Web, baby. The World Wide Web. Don't get stuck in the web, baby. Make your own web like that, baby. Peace out, baby.